Hey guys, today we're going to make chicken soup and chicken and dumplings. So I do chicken and dumplings as a soup. I don't like big hunks of, bones in it. I like it to be really easy because I like to making things easy for my kids when they're little and trying to eat it. And so I'm going to show how easy this can be anyway. So this time I demonstrated how you can pre-chop everything the day before. So I pre-chopped the potatoes, carrots, celery, onion, and parsley y- yesterday. The day before, I just chopped it all the way I wanted it. I made the broth with 2 cups of water, a teaspoon of salt, and then I used a one chicken bouillon cube. You can also use the vegetable Knorr bouillon, which is plant-based, if you prefer. And then, of course, for plant-based, you would not add the chicken. You would just have a vegetable soup or whatever chicken substitute you want to use. So I put those veggies in overnight. You can see how the potatoes did not brown because they have the salty broth surrounding them, so they all stay fresh. And so then, as I'm putting the chicken in this already boiling water, I just rip the skin off because it's just, in my mind, it's just fat, and I don't need grosses me out. But some people like that. I don't. And so I just rip the skin off there and toss it in there. Boiled it for about 20 minutes, and have this cool thermometer that you can just set the time and set the alarm to go off. And once it hits that certain temperature, it'll work. Works great for roasts. I can stick it in there and put it in the oven and set the temperature, and then it'll just scream at me when it reaches temperature and I don't overcook stuff. And so then we've boiled the chicken. You want to keep that liquid for the broth, and it's usually still going to have some fat in there. So I like my fat separator, which you just pour that in there. I can't believe I went so many years without one of those. It makes it so easy. Then water from the hot kettle into the pan so it's not sitting on the burner dry. Give it a second for that fat to rise up to the top. You can see the fat's all along the top, but the broth is pouring out from the spout from the very bottom. So then the broth goes straight back in the pan, and I can throw that fat away. And then I can just take all my vegetables that I chopped up yesterday and dump them all in there. Just all together, just it's so easy. It saves so much time when you can do this the day before, but you're busy the day that you have people coming over. Been really handy for me to do it this way. So then poured a little water into the bag to rinse out the rest of the parsley and stuff that was sticking inside of the bag. But I saved the bag because we're going to use that later. And got your salt and a little extra salt and pepper in there. So we've already got the one Knorr broth in there. We put a little Lowry seasoning salt in there. We've got the one Knorr broth cube in there. Later on, I believe I stick a second one in there. So now that the chicken has cooled a little bit and we've got the vegetables heating up so that they can start cooking and boiling, then stick that chicken in the bag you just took the veggies out of, and you just kind of mush them all together and rip the meat off the bones. It's going to make it so much easier to separate the bones from the meat that you're going to be putting back in the chicken. And of course, if this is plant-based, then you don't have to do any of that because you won't be putting chicken in it. You can just put, I don't know, there's a lot of cool mushrooms that you can use instead. There's, I've done it with cashews, a couple of handfuls of cashews, which give it a little more texture and some more protein. So now the extra bones, I usually am not going to throw those away. If I have an old roast chicken or extra bones from anything, I'm just going to keep a bag in the freezer. Then I'll just toss those bones into that bag. So that at a later time, when I make another soup, I'll just grab all those bones and toss them in and boil them for a while. Sometimes I'll make a 24-hour bone broth, or sometimes I'll just make my chicken broth out of all of those bones before I toss them. So now we've deboned the chicken. I make them pretty big and chunky. And I like to put those in near end of the soup so that they don't get all sucked up with that water. I like them to still have their own moisture. So here near the end where the vegetables are almost done cooking, then I'm going to add the chicken in there. And it doesn't get that super waterlogged mushiness to the meat when you put it in there near the end. At this point, I kind of gauge how much broth I want. I like a lot of broth. I didn't use as much broth as water as I usually do for broth in this batch because I don't normally do a chicken noodle soup and a chicken and dumpling soup at the same time. So it's um, kind of gauging how much much broth I was gonna want in there. So I do end up adding some more chicken bouillon to match up with the amount of extra water that I've been tossing in there. And I kind of put the spatula sort of flat on the bottom of the pan and swirl it around. That way I'm not mushing up the vegetables when I'm getting that bouillon cube to dissolve. So now that it's done, I'm scooping out the chicken and noodles portion. Whole thing about noodles, like if you're using just these like curly thin noodles, you don't even have to boil it any longer. You can just toss a handful or two of noodles in there, set it aside, and those noodles are going to soak up the broth and be done. So we don't even touch that anymore until the end when we do the pictures. Now, here I added some more water. I'm adding some more salt since I added more water. So get our, don't dilute it down too much. And I had not made dumplings for a long time. It's probably been about 3 years since I made dumplings. I did it a lot when my kids were young. So here, first time around, I made it too thin. I kind of ruined it. So we'll go back to that. But so this is about the thickness you want. You want it to be like a super sticky dough. And so when you plop it on there, it kind of rises up to the top. And see how they kind of bob around. You don't want it to just sink to the bottom because then it's going to be too loose dough. So this is going to turn out like little bread lumps that are super moist on the outside. And so once those are in there, you're going to turn the temperature down so that it's fairly low, but still kind of bubbling. You want that steam going because the steam is going to cook those dumplings. That's why you also want to put the lid on. So you put the lid on, and you're going to let that steam cook the dumplings for 10 minutes. Be sure to turn the heat down because my first time around, I made the batter too loose, and I also forgot to turn the heat down. I just forgot it. I hadn't done it in a few years, so sue me. And so I ended up having to rinse everything off the vegetables and chicken and put it through a colander and make a whole new broth and salt and pepper and Lowry seasoning salt and put all of the veggies and meat back into it. And then I had a whole new chicken soup basically with new broth and then did the correct ratio for the dumplings. So this was the actually second batch for me to do it correctly. I kind of wish I would have recorded the blooper because it was kind of funny actually. So anyway, I was still able to save it. Amazingly, I did not believe I was able to save it because that was it was a disaster. I'm like, whatever, I won't do the dumplings. But turned out really good. So my picture here has too much broth in my end picture with the chicken and dumplings, but it was super delicious. None of it went to waste. It all got eaten up. Thankfully, I had company the next week, so we got help eating all this soup. But I love those big, juicy chunks of chicken in the chicken noodles. I love that extra broth that you can just sip on, especially if you're sick and you're breathing in those, the vapor steam. But anyway, I hope you like it. Thanks for watching.